So what I hope is that at the end of this session, we would be able to look at the ways in which curriculum have approached teaching skills to students. But not just that, we would be able to take it one step further and say, what is it that we are doing presently at our schools? And how is it that as teachers, we can refine those practices? This session, I wanted that we would also be able to look at the ways in which teaching of the skills happen, what are the myths that people have, and what are the solutions for overcoming issues that teachers usually feel when they are told to teach skills within their course content. Our very first objective, take a minute, have a look at this. When we talk about the 21st century skills, there are different curriculum. There are people who talk about this and they say, what exactly is it that you're doing in terms of teaching skills? So reflect on this for a minute and see what exactly do these different frameworks of 21st century skills talk about, right? So if you're saying that you're looking at a primary curriculum, it might be that you are able to call it in the IB as approaches to learning. As teachers, it's expected that you are looking at these approaches to learning. Certain times in other curriculum, they're called as core competencies. So if you're following the New Zealand curriculum, if you're following the American curriculum, you might be calling them as the core skills that you are teaching. But competencies, skills, approaches to learning, they're all referring to the same. So when in different curricula, we have got these different names that the people are looking at, then it's very important for us as educators to understand that these entire different words, they could mean different things for people, right? So having a common definition of saying what exactly do these skills mean for educators is crucial. When we as educators are looking at what are the ways in which I can teach XYZ skill, what happens is we get a whole lot of resources which we are not even clear whether I can use in my context or not. The most crucial part, and this is where I'm going to actually open more conversations and share with you resources. I know that we are heading towards the end of our session, but when we start about creating frameworks for teaching skills, few of the fallacies and myths that I have seen in this is what, prompted me to actually start creating this session. My very first learning that happened was that when we started talking about how do you create a framework for the skills, I had these huge Excel sheets that schools would create and they would get the teachers to fill in and share. And what I realized is that schools who are just starting with international curricula or who are just doing auditing of their curriculum would assume that this was not being done, right? Or they thought that this was something that they were not doing well. So when you look at skills framework and how you do it, that's the next bit, right? Because when you are just designing an Excel sheet of, let's say, ATL skills, as we say it in the IB, or your curriculum competencies, as you might say it in the other curriculum, and you are just tick marking whether it is a novice, it is a practitioner, or is it an expert in your subject. All you have done is you have created a mapping of the skills. You have not created a skills framework. To create a skills framework, you should be presenting it as a student-friendly language or what that framework can do, right? So we always learn best by examples, right? Why don't we look at examples? So remember, we're going to be looking at 3 things, right? But we also need to remember that it needs to be something that gives us what it looks like in practice. So whenever you say that you're creating a framework, ask yourself, what do the skills look like in practice in your subject? Don't write fancy statements. Don't write things that you are not going to be able to do, right? Write down exactly what you're able to do. So as a science teacher, if you want that the teacher expects the students to be able to write a lab report which is organized in a particular manner, then please make sure that those lab reports that you want are focused on two things. One is the scientific knowledge that the student is writing. So remember the example that I gave about mathematics communication, you would create the same kind for a science communication. Make them very specific, write them in ways in which it is manageable for teachers. You don't need to cover all skills. You cover the skill that your subject deals with most importantly. Don't go beyond it. Just do that much.